Oh, hello. Alrighty.
Oh. There we go.
Alright, I've decided to do another reading stream from the comfort of my own home. It's so cold outside, but right now it is really nice inside. It's supposed to get down to negative 11 degrees. Can you believe that? Anyway, I'm on my recliner in my home. Well, I don't know how many people or if any people are going to be watching this, but it's okay because I don't do this for views. I do this for fun. This is just something fun to do. And I mean, people can watch it on playback if they want. Alright, today I will be reading The Babysitter's Club Mystery 28, Abby and the Mystery Baby. So, the plot goes. America's favorite babysitters are detectives too. When Abby comes home from school one day and finds a baby on her front porch, she's completely mystified. Where did he come from? And why was he left on the Stevensons' porch? Abby's mom convinces the authorities to let the baby, whom the family dubs Eli, stay at their house while the search for his parents is conducted. Abby is thrilled, but she can't just sit back and wait to see what happens. Abby and the BSC won't give up until they get some answers for Eli. Alright, and Abby is the person who replaced Dawn. But that's okay because we don't like Dawn. So yeah, Dawn can just be forgotten about because nobody likes her. Okay, here we go. And this book was published in 1997. Alright. Chapter 1. Go, Abby! Move it, Stevenson! Looking good! I didn't even break my stride when I heard the yelling. I just grinned and stuck both thumbs up in the air. Then out of the corner of my eye, I saw the big yellow blur of a school bus trundling by me. The bus was full of kids, and some of them, the ones who'd pulled down their windows to shout at me, were friends. They were on their way home from school, and so was I. The difference was that I had chosen to run rather than ride. I knew my friends thought I was nuts. After all, it was wintertime and not exactly warm out. Why would anyone choose a sweaty, gasping run over a comfy ride on the bus? Well, because the bus sucks. Okay. The thing is, even though they are my friends, none of those kids knows me very well. That's because I moved here. Here is Stony Brook, Connecticut. Only recently. Back at my old school on Long Island, nobody would have been surprised to see me running at this time of year. There goes Abby, they'd say, training as usual. As my old friends know, and as my new friends are finding out, I'm always in training for something. Soccer, track, softball, you name it. Not that I think sports are everything. I have plenty of other interests. But being in good shape physically is important to me. Hold on, here I am babbling on, and we haven't even been formally introduced. Well, let's back up then. My name's Abby Stevenson. I'm 13 years old, and I'm in 8th grade at Stony Brook Middle School. I have a twin sister named Anna, and we live with our mom in a house that's really a bit too big for us three. There used to be 4 of us, but that was before we moved to Stony Brook. Back when Anna and I were kids, when my mom was a happy, relaxed kind of person who laughed a lot and cooked the most incredible food. She was going to cooking school at the time to learn how to be a chef. That was before my dad died. I don't talk about him much, so I'm only going to say this once. My dad was the best. He was the one who made my mom laugh. He was an environmental engineer with the heart of a hippie. He went to the original Woodstock. He cared about the world and about making it a better place. He gave the best hugs. He played the harmonica. Not well, but I'd give him an E for effort. He wore steel-rimmed glasses and plaid flannel shirts, and he always smelled good. And then one day he was gone. He died in a car accident when Anna and I were 9, and nothing has ever been the same. Oh, I understand. I understand losing your father. I lost my father when I was 18. Hello. Okay, let's see. My mom changed her job and became a high-powered editor at a publishing house in New York City. Recently, she was promoted, and since we could afford it, we moved to a nicer, bigger house here in Connecticut. I like Stony Brook just fine, and I've made some good friends here. I've even become a member of this terrific club called the BSC, or Babysitters Club. More about that later. But I'll never stop missing my dad. Neither will Anna. She's made friends here too. They're mostly music friends. Anna is an incredibly talented musician who spends nearly all her free time practicing the violin. She's in the orchestra at school, and she also takes private lessons and plays chamber music with other musicians. As you've probably guessed, Anna and I are pretty different as far as personality goes. We do look alike, though. We both have dark, dark brown eyes. They're almost black, really. And terrible eyesight, which we correct with contacts and glasses. Not at the same time, naturally. And we have the same thick, curly, dark hair. We recently discovered one other physical difference between us. Anna has scoliosis, which is a curvature of the spine. Her curve is pretty minor, and she won't need surgery, but she does have to wear a brace for a while. At first, I was worried about Anna. I hovered around trying to take care of her and cheer her up, instead of letting her work through things on her own. I nearly drove her crazy. We even had a big fight about it, but once we sorted it out, we ended up closer than ever. I love being a twin. Anna and I are connected forever in some very deep and mysterious ways. At times when we're separated, we have these feelings about each other, and they'll turn out to be true. For instance, one time I was having this monster asthma attack, and Anna knew it, even though she was miles away at an all-state orchestra competition. Asthma, the bane of my existence. Did you ever have the feeling that you needed air desperately, but no matter what you did, you couldn't seem to pull enough of it into you? Or into your lungs? Oh my gosh, this is hard to read for some reason. Probably not unless you are a fellow asthmatic. All I can tell you is that it's the pits. I don't let it keep me from doing things, though. I carry inhalers with me at all times, and if I feel dizzy, or if I feel a little short of breath or a bit wheezy, they usually fix me right up. Usually, not always. There have been a couple of trips to the emergency room, but I prefer not to think about those. I also have mondo allergies to dogs, kitty litter, but not cats, oddly enough. Any kind of dust, pillows with feathers in them. Oh, just thinking about that can make me sneeze. And a bunch of different foods, including shellfish and cheese. It's a drag, but what can you do? I've learned to live with my allergies and asthma, though I keep hoping I'll grow out of it sometime. Thump, thump, thump. My running shoes made a satisfying rhythm as they hit the sidewalk. My arms pumped easily, my breathing was deep and regular, and I felt relaxed and happy. Running always makes me feel good. I was glad I decided it was time to quit riding and start striding. I smiled as I ran, thinking about how I'd cracked up my table in the cafeteria during lunch hour. I'd been doing impressions of our teachers and of Mr. Kingbridge, the assistant principal. I'm a pretty good mimic, if I do say so myself. I'm never mean about it. I don't pick on people's speech impediments or anything. I just try to copy their walks, their ways of gesturing, their particular speech patterns, and soon my audience is practically rolling on the floor. Back at my old school, I had a name as the class clown. It hasn't taken long to build the same reputation here in Stony Brook. I almost said Storybrooke. Hello, King Shark. Okay. Okay, what was I doing? I'm always the first to fire off a one-liner or perform a little bit of slapstick. And truthfully, I don't think the teachers mind it. I notice they're usually smiling too. After all, who couldn't use a little humor in the day? Anyway, it's not as if I use comedy to avoid my schoolwork. I'm a decent student, and I usually make better than average grades as long as I'm not stressed out. For instance, the way I was not long ago when Anna and I were studying for our bat mitzvah. Bat what, you may be asking? Don't worry, I'll explain. See, my family is Jewish. And when Jewish girls turn 13, they take part in a special celebration called a bat mitzvah. Boys have a celebration too. It's called a bar mitzvah. It's a big deal because it represents a person's entry into adulthood. The thing is, it's not just a party, it's much more than that. When you become a bat mitzvah, you have to read in public from a scroll called the Torah. Okay, anyone who's watching this, I apologize if I mispronounce anything. Which is written in Hebrew. Yikes. So for about a year before the big day, Anna and I had to study Hebrew. Plus, we each had to write a speech, which we would give after our Torah readings. The speech was the part that pushed me over the edge in the days leading to our bat mitzvah. It was a nightmare, but somehow it all worked out and I made it through the day with flying colors. Just thinking about our bat mitzvah made me grateful for having nothing bigger to worry about than what to eat for a snack when I arrived home. Thump, thump, thump. I really had a great rhythm going now. I looked around at the patches of snow and the bare brown branches of trees, soon to be covered with green, and thought about how nice it used to be back when Mom was going to cooking school. I'd arrive home after school to find her in the kitchen doing homework. What do you think of this puff pastry? She'd ask, shoving a tray of gorgeous chocolate drizzled treats at me. Try the one on the left and tell me if you think it's flakier than the one on the right. I'd say after I'd taken a few bites, just to be polite, of course. They're both awesome. Excuse me. Those were the days. Now when I walk into the house, I'm more likely to find a chilly, empty kitchen. I'm always the first one home, since Anna is either at orchestra or lessons or some other music-related activity. And Mom commutes by train to her job in New York City, where she almost always works too late. Works late. If she makes it home before 7, it's an event. We rarely eat home-cooked meals together on weekdays. The three of us subsist on frozen dinners, pizza, and takeout Chinese. So, as far as afternoon snacks go, let's just say that the microwave and I have become very, very close pals. And I don't even mind the empty house so much anymore. I'm used to it, I guess. I was feeling great as I turned into our U-shaped driveway. That's called a cul-de-sac. There's nothing like a good brisk run to make you feel pumped up and happy. I decided I was going to nuke a bean burrito for my snack, and I was looking forward to the quiet couple of hours I'd have before my BSC meeting later that afternoon. I trotted up the driveway slowing my pace in order to cool down a little before my post-run stretching routine. I usually stretch in our front porch, which is humongous. As I approached, I saw a bulky, light-colored object near the front door. It stood out because the door, which is beautifully carved, is made out of dark wood. Was it a package? Maybe it was the bike helmet I'd ordered. That would be excellent. But as I drew closer, I saw it wasn't a package at all. It was a car seat, a small gray one, the kind people use for babies. It was just sitting there on the porch, which I thought was weird. Why would someone leave a car seat on our front porch? Forgetting about my stretching routine, I stepped up onto the porch to take a look. The car seat wasn't empty. There was a baby in it, a living, breathing, squirming baby, about 4 months old to my expert babysitter's eye. Someone had left a baby on our doorstep. Whoa. Okay. I need to drink something. Alright, just a second. I've got to get something to drink real fast. Okay. Stay tuned. All right, I'm back. Sorry, I had to get something to drink. There we go. Right, Chapter 2, Panic City. I took a deep breath. Then I took a couple more. Wow, I can't talk today for some reason. I stared at the baby, and it stared calmly back at me with huge slate blue eyes that matched its little blue hat, and also the blue cowboys and horses on the threadbare but clean red blanket that it was wrapped in. "Who are you?" I said out loud, "and why on earth would someone leave you here?" The baby blinked, but other than that, its serene expression didn't change, and it certainly didn't speak up with an answer to my questions. I shivered a little. I'd been plenty warm during my run, but now I realized that it wasn't exactly balmy out. "Well, whoever you are, I think you'd better come inside with me," I said. I opened the front door, gathered up the car seat, went inside, and kicked the door shut behind me. The house was empty. Big surprise, right? As I said, I've grown used to being the first one home. But that day, I felt more alone than ever. It was just me and the baby, and more than anything, I wished someone else were there to help me figure out what to do. "Anna," I called tentatively. Maybe, just maybe, she decided to skip orchestra for once. No such luck. "Mom," I tried. My voice sounded a little shaky. Then the silence was broken only by a little snip. I looked down and saw the baby looked as if it were about to sneeze. Okay, please don't refer to a baby as it. A baby is a person. "Okay, baby," I said, heading toward the living room. My arms were tired from holding the car seat, and I needed to put it down. "Quit saying it." Okay. "It's just you and me. Let's make ourselves comfortable." I settled the car seat onto the couch. The baby, still calm, gazed at me as I stripped off my warm-up jacket and kicked off my running shoes. I sat down on the couch to take a closer look at this tiny person who had appeared on my doorstep. One little arm had wiggled free of the blanket and was waving around. "You are adorable," I said, picking up the tiny hand and looking at the even tinier perfect fingernails that adorned it. The hand was warm. The baby couldn't have been out on that porch for very long. The baby frowned. "And I bet you'd like to get out of that car seat, wouldn't you?" I asked, carefully moving slowly so as to not startle the baby. I unfastened the strap that held it securely into the seat. Then I picked up the baby, blanket and all. "Oh," I sighed as I pulled the baby close for a hug. Its warm weight filled my arms, and I could smell that delicious baby smell coming from the top of its head. There was another smell too. It was faint but unmistakable. The baby needed its diaper changed. How was I supposed to deal with that? I felt panic rise again. Then I took a deep breath and tried to calm down. I glanced back at the car seat and noticed a navy blue bag that must have been wedged in next to the baby. With any luck, it would have clean diapers. I shifted the baby's weight to one arm, reached over and retrieved the bag. Sure enough, it was packed full of diapers, wipes, formula, bottles, and even a couple of clean sleepers. This baby came fully equipped. Obviously, someone cared about this child. But why had he or she abandoned the baby, and why on my porch? I went to work right there on the couch. I unwrapped the blanket to find that the baby was dressed in a yellow sleeper with ducklings embroidered on it. "Oh, how cute," I said, laying the baby down on the blanket. I unsnapped the legs of its sleeper and saw a pretty soggy disposable diaper. I pulled it off. Suddenly, I knew the answer. I had the answer I'd been wondering about. A boy. He's a little idle boy. I knew I sounded ridiculous, but nobody was there to hear me, except the baby, who was smiling up at me. He was too cute for words. I wiped him down, fastened on a clean, dry diaper, and snapped the legs of his suit up again. "There you go, sir," I said, "all set." He smiled again, and my heart melted. I bent down and rubbed noses with him. "You are the sweetest, oogiest little booger I ever saw," I murmured to him. Something about babies just brings out those nonsense words, doesn't it? The baby squirmed and gave a tiny hiccup. Then he smiled again. I was in love. I was also awfully curious. Who was this gorgeous little guy? Who had put him on my porch, and why? And why my porch? For one crazy second, I had this image of a stork getting lost and leaving this baby with us by mistake, like in Dumbo. That was a nutty idea, but it was nicer than some of the other ideas that were popping into my head. Like, had the baby been kidnapped? Was his mom crying her eyes out, wondering where he was? Who was his mom, and how would I ever find her? Just then, the phone rang, and I crash-landed back into reality. I picked up the baby and ran to the phone. "Hello," I said, hoping against hope that it would be my mother or some other responsible adult. I suddenly realized I had no idea what to do next. I mean, a baby had landed on my doorstep, a baby I knew nothing about. So, what was I supposed to do? Mrs. Stevenson? Asked a voice on the other end. A calm female voice said. No, this is Miss Stevenson, I said. Who is this? I'm calling from Benco Industries, the woman said, with a very special offer just for the Stevenson family. Oh, bother, a sales call. My heart sank. But the woman sounded so nice and so capable. For a second, I had the urge to blurt out my problem. See, this baby just arrived on my doorstep. But then I realized how ridiculous that would be. This lady on the other end of the phone couldn't help me, even if she did sound wise and comforting. Thank you, but I'm really not interested, I said. Goodbye. As I hung up the phone, something caught my eye. A piece of paper lay near the sugar bowl on the kitchen table. I picked it up. It was a note from my mom. Came home from work early, it said. Heating system broke, and it was freezing there, out doing errands. That meant my mom would be home soon. Yes, but there was no knowing exactly when. Boo! And I needed help now. Help figuring out what to do. I was so panicked I just couldn't think straight. I shifted the baby from one arm to the other as I gazed at the phone. Who should I call? Christy. That was it. Christy Thomas. Christy knows what to do in any situation. Christy's a friend and a neighbor, and the president of the BSC. I knew she could help. I dialed her number. Christy appeared on my front door approximately 6 seconds after we'd hung up. Behind her was her grandmother, Nanny. Oh, look at that poor little guy, cooed Nanny, holding out her arms for the baby. What a tiny thing to be away from his parents. I handed him over, and she immediately started making those oogie boogie noises at him. I guess it's universal. Christy, meanwhile, swung into action. What time did you come home? She asked. And where was he exactly? And was there any kind of note or ID? The questions tumbled out of her so quickly, I could barely keep up. Oh, just a second, I gotta drink some more water. Here we go. I guess about half an hour ago on the porch. No, not that I saw. I was a little dazed. Okay, let's make the call, said Christy, marching into the kitchen. The call? I asked, following her and feeling stupid, but Christy wasn't waiting for me to figure it out. She'd already dialed. Sergeant Johnson, please, she said crisply into the phone. Then she said a bunch of other stuff, but I missed most of it because just then my mom came home. Hi, sweetie, she called, hurrying to the kitchen and stripping off her gloves. The baby chose that moment to begin shrieking at the top of its little idle lungs. What? Asked my mother, her mouth open wide and her eyebrows raised high. The baby screamed even more loudly, and Nanny appeared in the kitchen doorway holding him. I think he's hungry, she said apologetically. There's formula in the blue bag, I said, trying to be heard over his cries. Blue bag? Formula? Asked my mother. What's going on? For a few minutes, everything was chaos as Christy, Nanny, and I tried to explain things to my mom. Find the formula, heat it, make up a bottle, and settle the baby down to drink it. Is this the blanket the baby came wrapped in? Asked my mother when we'd all trooped back into the living room. Her voice sounded a little strange. Yes, and I know it's kind of thin, I said, but he really wasn't cold. Whoever left him made sure he'd be all right. My mother muttered something, but I didn't quite catch it. She folded the blanket carefully and spent some time tucking it back into the car seat. Then she leaned over to take another closer look at the baby, who was lying peacefully in Nanny's arms, content now that he had a bottle to suck on. I saw my mom and her face softened as she gazed at the baby, but she looked worried too. There was a knock at the door. That must be Sergeant Johnson, said Christy, jumping up to answer. Sure enough, when she returned, she was accompanied by a tall policeman with black hair and clear blue eyes. Sergeant Johnson is a great guy. The BSC has helped to solve more than one mystery in Stony Brook, and Sergeant Johnson has become our friend. Well, would you look at him, said Sergeant Johnson, after all the introductions had been made. He gave the baby a little chuck under the chin and made some oogie boogie noises. Why wasn't I surprised? Why wasn't I surprised? Okay. Then Anna came home and we had to explain everything all over again and listen to more oogie boogies. By that time, the living room was full of people. I'd like to talk to each of you in turn, said Sergeant Johnson, pulling a small notebook out of his shirt pocket. Okay, if we use the kitchen, he asked my mom. She nodded, and Sergeant Johnson turned to me. You were the first one to find him, right? Let's go. He led me into the kitchen, asked me to sit, and I listened as I told him every detail I could remember. He wrote it down and sent me back to the living room for Christy. I was still a little dazed, but it sure felt good to have someone else take charge. Oh my gosh, here we go. I need another drink. We all sat in the living room looking at the baby and handing him around as each person was called into the kitchen to talk to Sergeant Johnson. My mom was last. I went into the kitchen to heat up some more formula just as she was finishing up and heard Sergeant Johnson saying, I see, well, that could be possible. Of course, we'll follow every lead. My ears pricked up, but before I could ask what lead my mother had suggested, my God. Christy poked her head into the room. It's time for the BSC meeting, she said. I'll call Charlie and ask him to swing by. Charlie, one of Christy's older brothers, drives us to BSC meetings. She headed for the phone. You don't have to come if you don't want to. I'd understand. Actually, I'd like to, I said, looking at my mom and Sergeant Johnson to see if it was all right with them. They nodded, and I felt relieved. I needed to leave the house for a little while, if only to have a chance to think about what happened. It had been some afternoon. An hour ago, I had nothing heavier on my mind than how many miles a week I should run in order to be in shape for track tryouts. And now look, the arrival of one tiny baby had changed everything. My life had suddenly become much more complicated. Alright, that was chapter 2. See, I might do one more chapter because I'm getting really tired. It's hard to read books like these sometimes because my throat hurts and I have really bad allergies right now. Here we go. Chapter 3. Christy chattered away as we drove to the meeting, telling Charlie about the baby's mysterious appearance on my doorstep. I heard her talking, but I wasn't paying much attention. I couldn't stop thinking about the baby, how cute he was, and how mysterious and exciting it was that he had turned up at my house. Exciting and worrisome. How were we going to track down his parents? I couldn't wait to tell my BSC friends about the baby. I knew they'd be just as excited as I was. After all, babies don't turn up on doorsteps every day. I looked at Christy and couldn't help grinning as I remembered how she jumped into action when she heard about the baby's arrival. Miss Take Charge, that's Christy for you. I guess everyone has his or her own way of reaching to unusual circumstances. I thought about each of my friends in the BSC and tried to predict what each would do if a baby appeared on her doorstep. Christy, as you've already seen, never wastes time trying to decide what to do. She just does it. She's a natural-born leader, full of ideas and blessed with the energy and drive to bring those ideas to life. The BSC owes its existence to Christy. She's the one who had the idea for the club. She figured out that it would be great to have one phone number at which parents could reach a whole bunch of experienced sitters, instead of having to make a zillion calls every time they needed someone to watch their kids. Like most of Christy's ideas, this one was very simple and yet brilliant. At first, the club advertised it with flyers and newspaper ads, but now we hardly ever needed to do that. Satisfied parents are the only advertising we need. We meet every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoon from 5:30 to 6, and we usually receive plenty of calls. Christy wasn't content with a thriving business, though. She had to keep making it better. So she came up with some more ideas. The club notebook, for example, in which we each write notes about every job we go on. Parents love the fact that we're up to date with what's happening with our charges. And the record book, in which we keep track of schedules and client information. And Kid Kits. Kid Kits are a huge hit with our charges. My God, that is so hard to say for some reason. They're cardboard boxes we've decorated and then filled with stickers, markers, and hand-me-down toys and books that are new and exciting to kids we sit for. We don't take them on every job, but Kid Kits are a BSC trademark. Anyway, back to Christy. She has long brown hair and brown eyes, and she's on the short side. She's not into fashion or makeup. She dresses in jeans and a turtleneck just about every day. She says she's too busy to bother with dressing up, and I guess she is. Besides, running the BSC, she coaches the softball team, Christy's Crushers. I'm proud to be their assistant coach. Also, she has a huge family, so her house is majorly chaotic. Christy has 2 older brothers, Charlie, our driver, age 17, and Sam, who's 15, plus 1 younger one, David Michael, age 7. That's the family she grew up with, her brothers and her mother. Her dad cut out on them way back when David Michael was a baby. But Christy's family has changed and grown a lot in the recent past. It all started when Christy's mom fell in love with a man named Watson Brewer, who happens to be mega rich. Wedding bells rang, and Christy and her brothers moved across town into Watson's mansion, which happens to be 2 houses down from mine. Watson has 2 children from his first marriage, Karen and Andrew, who live in the mansion part-time. And then soon after their marriage, Watson and Christy's mom decided to adopt a baby, so Emily Michelle came to live at the mansion too. She's an incredibly cute 2.5-year-old who was born in Vietnam. Soon after she arrived, Nanny came to help out with everything. Full house, right? And that's not even counting the puppy, Shannon, the cat, Boo Boo, the goldfish, the hermit crab, and the rat. What a menagerie. I'd be sneezing my head off if I lived there. Anyway, you can see why Christy wasn't fazed by a baby showing up on my doorstep. Next, I thought about Claudia Kishi. We were on our way to her house since the BSC meetings are held in Claudia's room. Why? Because she has her own phone with a private line. That's how she ended up being named vice president. You know how the vice president of the country doesn't seem to have many actual responsibilities? Well, that's true of the VP of the BSC too. The only thing Claude really has to do is answer the phone and take care of any BSC business that comes up during non-meeting times. However, she's also taken it upon herself to be the OSMP, official snack and munchie provider. But that's a labor of love. Claudia's a junk foodie. A junk food junkie. I wondered how Claude would react to finding a baby on her doorstep. If her reaction to the birth of her cousin and godchild, Lynn, was any indication, Claudia would be thrilled. She might even go a little overboard in the way she did after Lynn was born. She bought the baby so many presents and spent so much time helping the baby's parents, she succeeded in making a major pest of herself. She's probably learned from that experience, but I bet she'd dive right into making the baby a gorgeous mobile, or start painting a mural for the room it'd be staying in. See, Claudia's an artist, a very talented one. I've never met anyone who can outdraw, outpaint, outsculpt, or outcreate Claudia. Even her way of dressing is creative. Her outfits are never boring, that's for sure. Claudia is not an academic genius. Claudia is not an academic genius like her older sister Janine, who takes college courses even though she's only 16. In fact, Claudia has so much trouble in school that she was recently sent back to 7th grade. Until then, she was in 8th, like most of the rest of the BSC members. After a difficult adjustment period, she's actually doing well, and I think it's a real treat for her to be making A's and B's for a change. Claudia is a Japanese American and truly beautiful. With long black hair that she's always fixing in new and interesting ways, dark almond-shaped eyes, and a figure to die for, even though she practically lives on Doritos. Her parents detest her junk food habit and always disapprove of her love of Nancy Drew mysteries, but Claude refuses to give them up. Claudia's best friend and the BSC's treasurer is Stacy McGill. Stacy is a savvy, sassy, sophisticated sort. That's called alliteration, when all the words start with the same letter. We learned about it in English the other day. If Stacy found a baby on her doorstep, her first thoughts would probably be about opening a college savings account for the child, and she'd start assessing the various stock and bond options in order to figure out the most adventurous investment plan. Wow, that was a run-on sentence. Okay. Stacy is a whiz with numbers and enjoys math class. As Claudia would say, it takes all kinds. Stacy grew up in Manhattan, which is where her savvy, sassy sophistication comes from. Okay. She still goes there as often as possible to visit her dad. Her parents were divorced not long ago, and Stacy chose to live here in Stony Brook with her mom, even though a big part of her heart belongs to Bloomingdale's. Stacy has long blonde hair, usually permed into a mass of fluffy curls, blue eyes, and a knack for dressing in the trendiest styles without looking like some kind of supermodel wannabe. Ever heard of diabetes? That's a disease in which your body doesn't process sugars correctly. Stacy has it. What that means is that she has to be very, very careful about what she eats. No sweet stuff, just a very balanced, healthy diet. And she has to monitor her blood sugar to give herself injections of insulin every day. Tough stuff, but Stacy deals with it well. I think she and I share a special understanding since we've both had to learn to live with chronic health problems. Mary Ann Spire, the BSC's secretary, is another person who, like Claudia, would want to make things for a baby who arrived on her doorstep. Only instead of mobiles, Mary Ann would knit blankets and booties. She's a champion knitter, and it's a hobby that suits her personality. Mary Ann is a quiet, private person, so knitting makes more sense than, say, karaoke singing. She's also very warm and has a soft touch, like a knitted blanket. Mary Ann has short brown hair and brown eyes and dresses fairly conservatively, compared to Claudia anyway. Surprisingly, quiet Mary Ann is best friends with Hurricane Christy. I guess it's true what they say about opposites attracting. She has a steady boyfriend named Logan Bruno. Okay, let's see. Who is a sweet-talking ex-Southerner. He's from Louisville, Kentucky. And a second best friend and stepsister named Dawn Schaefer, who nobody likes. No, it doesn't say that. Dawn used to be in the BSC. In fact, I took her place when she moved back to California for good, which was a real blessing to all the other BSC members because they hated Dawn because she's a bitch. No, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. It says, when she moved back to California, her job, now mine, was an alternate officer, which means being on standby in case any officer can't make it to a meeting. Dawn's mom, a divorcee, married Mary Ann's dad, a widower ever since Mary Ann was a baby. Not long ago, after Mary Ann and Dawn discovered that their parents had dated each other back in the dark ages, when they were in high school. Apparently, it wasn't hard to bring them back together, and then the magic happened all over again. Now Mary Ann and her dad and Dawn's mom live in what used to be Dawn's house, an old farmhouse with a secret passage and a ghost. And Dawn returned to California, which is probably for the best because nobody likes her. Dawn has returned to California to live with her dad and her younger brother. I know everyone in the BSC misses Dawn. No, they don't. Nobody misses Dawn. Mary Ann most of all. Like, probably the only one because, like, seriously, nobody likes you, Dawn. Okay. I hardly know Dawn, which is a blessing. I've only met her when she was home during vacations, but I can see why everybody likes her. Are you sure? Because I can see why everybody hates her. Okay. If she found a baby on her doorstep, she'd probably start reading books like How to Raise an Organic Baby. Dawn's seriously into healthy foods, which is probably why she acts the way she does and why nobody likes her. Okay. Anyway, almost there, Abby, Christy called from the front seat. Time to wake up. She turned to grin at me. I smiled back. I hadn't said a word during the trip to Claudia's house. I was too distracted thinking about the baby and about my friends. There are 2 other members of the BSC, both of whom are a little younger than the rest of us. Their names are Mallory Pike and Jessie Ramsey, and they happen to be best friends. Mal has reddish-brown hair, glasses, and braces, which she hates. Like we hate Dawn. Okay. While Jessie has beautiful, deep brown eyes, dark skin, and long legs of a dancer. They're both 11 and in 6th grade and are excellent, responsible sitters. Since they're younger, their parents don't allow them to sit nights unless it's for their own siblings, so they end up taking a lot of afternoon jobs. Let's see, what would Mal do if she found a baby on her doorstep? Well, first of all, she probably wouldn't freak out. Mal's used to babies and kids since she has 7. count 'em, 7 younger sisters and brothers. No, she wouldn't panic. Instead, she'd probably start thinking about all the picture books she'd write and illustrate for the baby. Mal loves to write and draw, and she wants to be a children's author someday. Jessie's reaction to a baby? She'd probably measure its little feet and order its first ballet slippers. Jessie's a dance fanatic who takes classes and practices regularly. She wakes up at like 5 a.m. in order to work out. She's very talented. Her family is smaller than Mal's. She has a younger sister and a baby brother, plus an aunt who lives with the family. So that's the BSC. Don't they sound like a great group, except for Dawn? I feel so lucky to have been invited to join the club. Anna was invited also, but she's too busy with her music. Oh, I almost forgot. There are 2 associate members of the BSC who would help out if we're overbooked. One of them is Logan Bruno, Marianne's beau. The other is Shannon Kilborn, who lives near Christy and me, but goes to private school. I don't know either of them all that well, since they don't usually come to meetings, but they seem very nice. Yo, Abby, Christy's voice interrupted my thoughts. We're here. She was climbing out of the car. Somehow we'd arrived at Claudia's without me even realizing it, and it was time for our meeting to begin. Alright, I'm going to stop for now. I'm on chapter 4.